Alrighty, everyone. Good evening. We are excited to kick off our part two of our six-part webinar series on physical well-being presented by Affinity Federal Credit Union. Today's topic is movement and exercise, differentiating between the two. My name is Nicholas Battagliano. I am the Wellbeing Communication Specialist here at Affinity. Today's presenter and expert guest is Anthony Rusumano, founder of Rusumano Training LLC and personal health coach for exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and the link to watch the presentation again will be shared with you all in a follow-up email that we sent out soon. Also, if you have any questions that you would like to ask during the presentation, feel free to use the Q&A or chat option on your panel, and we'll be more than happy to address them at the end of the webinar. Before we jump in, a quick disclosure. This information is for informational purposes only and is intended to provide general guidance and does not constitute medical advice. Each person or person's circumstances are different and may not apply to the specific information provided. You should seek the advice of a medical professional to discuss your specific needs before making any medical, dietary, or lifestyle commitments regarding the matters related to this webinar series. Affinity is not affiliated, nor do they endorse or recommend any reference apps, websites, or companies and/or their products or services. Accordingly, Affinity takes no responsibility for the quality, reliability of the products and services offered by these apps, websites, or companies. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much again, Nick, for the introduction, and welcome on back, everyone, for our second of 6 webinars. I am very excited. If you did miss out on last week's webinar, we covered nutrition. You can always go back and watch the recording for that one. It was awesome. But we are going to actually jump into part 2, which is going to be movement and exercise. So this is going to be really focusing on the difference between the two and how both of them separately can lead to tremendous health benefits. All right, so before we jump in, and this is good for those who missed the call last week, I want to really give you guys a reminder about why these webinars, why physical well-being, very quickly, and then we will jump into the specific topic. So the whole reason of why was I was emphasizing last time about the difference between health span and lifespan, right? It's all about increasing our longevity. So to give you a quick reminder, we talked about lifespan, right? Lifespan is the chronological numbers of years that we live. On the other hand, we have health span, which is the number of years that we live healthily, right? So this is the quality of our years. And our goal, our why, is to increase our health span, right? And this is the health adjusted life expectancy you can see at the bottom. This is our goal, okay? And this is going to be the second tool in our toolkit for increasing our health span. Okay, so to start off movement and exercise, we are going to go through 3 different things tonight. We're going to go through the difference between movement and exercise. We're going to go through the benefits of moving our body. And then I'm going to give you my recommendation so that you have something to leave with today and take on after this call as well. All right, so jumping into the first movement and exercise differentiation, let's first talk about these 2 terms. So let's put a definition behind them. So first off, I got both these definitions from Google, and then I'm going to break these down for you. But starting with movement, movement is quite literally just the act of changing our physical location, right? On the other hand, we have exercise, which is, if it'll go, there it goes, is activity, right? Requiring physical effort, usually with a goal or a purpose in mind. Okay, so you read these 2 and you're like, they seem very similar. What is the difference between the 2? And I have an awesome analogy to actually really paint this picture. And this analogy is a clock versus a timer. Okay, so where we have very similar concepts, but different roles. The clock in this case is going to represent our daily movement. Okay, on a clock, the hand is going to continuously move, right? We can't unfortunately control time, and it's going to keep moving throughout the day. This represents our daily movement. On the other hand, we have a timer. A timer we use to set a specific duration for a specific purpose with a specific goal in mind. This is going to represent exercise. Okay, so hopefully that really paints the picture between movement and exercise, because differentiating these 2 concepts is really going to make sense on the later end of our webinar tonight. So jumping into breaking these down, let's start with movement. And let's get a really good understanding of movement, and then we will go into exercise. So, to really explain movement, I want to go through what I call metabolism 101. Okay, and yes, some people may assume that this is nutrition related, but they actually go hand in hand with exercise and nutrition. So, metabolism quite literally just means breaking down what we eat, what we consume into usable energy. Okay, so you can think about it this way, it's just the burning of calories. And I want to go through four main ways that we burn calories so that you really get an understanding of why movement is important. And this will come towards the end of this. So, for metabolism, four main ways that we burn calories. The first way I want to go through is what's called our basal metabolic rate, also known as our BMR. Our BMR is quite literally just the amount of calories we burn to live and to sustain our bodies, right? So basal meaning base, metabolic meaning the burning of calories, and rate, which is just a measure of quantity. So if you were to sleep all day without any movement, not getting any steps in, no muscle contraction, this is the amount of calories that you would burn. So it is affected by body weight and most importantly muscle mass. However, it's not really affected on a day-to-day basis. Okay, and this consists of 70% of our total calories burned throughout the day. Okay, so the first way we burn calories is not in our control on a daily basis. However, the next three that we go through are going to be on our ability to control them. So the second one is what's called non-exercise activity thermogenesis, also known as NEAT. This is why I really want to differentiate between movement and exercise. And we'll come back and really paint the picture here. But non-exercise activity, right? So that means any activity that is not structured, aka movement, and then thermogenesis, meaning the production of heat. So that just means burning of calories. So NEAT is the amount of calories that we burn outside of sleeping, outside of eating, and outside of structured exercise. Okay, so again, the amount of calories that we burn through movement. So this is going to be 15% of our daily caloric expenditure. The third one is what's called the thermic effect of food. Don't really need to emphasize this too much, but I definitely want to paint the picture for you. This is the amount of calories we actually burn to digest the food that we're eating. And fun little fact, we burn the most amount of calories digesting protein than carbs and fats. So again, this goes off of the nutrition webinar 2 weeks ago, but just another reason why we should definitely be consuming lots and lots of protein. So this consists of 10% of our daily caloric expenditure. And last but definitely not least, we have exercise activity thermogenesis, also known as EAT. So just drop the N of NEAT. And this is actually the opposite of NEAT, right? So exercise activity, this is structured activity with a purpose. Thermogenesis, meaning the burning of calories. So EAT, or exercise activity thermogenesis, is the amount of calories we burn during one bout of exercise. And surprisingly enough, this is only 5% of our total daily caloric expenditure. Okay, so where can we take this and how does this relate to movement? Well, really focusing on NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, because this is the definition of movement, while exercise activity thermogenesis, is exercise. Okay, this is what I want you to take away from this metabolism and from this whole differentiation between movement and exercise is that of the calories that we burn that we can control. Reminder, I said that basal metabolic rate or BMR we can't control on a day-to-day basis. However, we can put on more muscle mass and that'll affect it later down the road. But from a daily basis, of the calories that we can control, that's NEAT, that's TEF, thermic effect of food, and that's EAT. 50% of those calories are from movement. That's pretty amazing. So, of the calories we can control on a daily basis, 50% of them are just from our non-exercise daily movement. Pretty cool. So, how can we increase our NEAT? How can we increase our daily movement? Very simply, walking more, of course, right? One of the biggest recommendations that I get is always parking the furthest spot in the parking lot. Using a standing desk, this is gonna be a great reason to use this picture because I absolutely love it and think it's hilarious. But standing desks are absolutely so important. Not only are you're going to be going into some of the recommendations that I will be touching on later. But again, it's just being on your feet is so important. Taking the stairs, household chores, sitting on a stability ball, right? These are things, shopping, fidgeting. These are things that you don't really think about, but that you can add into your daily routine that is going to affect your caloric expenditure as well. All right, so that is movement. Now let's jump into exercise. We are going to break down the different types of exercise. And as a reminder, right, exercise is very deliberate, it's very structured. We always have a goal and a purpose in mind when it comes to exercise. So I want to give you a bunch of types and examples so that you know the difference and how to utilize them. The first type of exercise that I want to go through is cardiovascular exercise, right? So this is the type of exercise that we all first go to and that most people that are familiar with. So cardiovascular exercise just involves increasing our heart rate above resting levels. So breaking this down, right? Cardio meaning heart, vascular meaning vessels like blood vessels, right? So it's the movement of blood from our heart to our vessels and back to our heart. And the goal with cardiovascular exercise is to increase that heart rate above that resting levels. So that just means pumping more blood out of the heart. And that just leads to many, many benefits that we're going to get into. So now there are two ways to perform cardiovascular exercise as well. The first of which is what's called low intensity steady state cardio, also known as LISS. This is a lower working heart rate for a longer duration, right? So this means that like during this type of activity, you could hold a conversation, maybe with some breaks because your respiratory rate, your breathing rate is a little higher. So this is gonna be like brisk walking or using the Stairmaster in the gym, again for a longer duration. The second type of cardiovascular training is high intensity interval training. So this is where you're now reaching close to maximal heart rate. This is where you are not going to be able to hold a conversation during this type of exercise. So that's going to be like sprint intervals or CrossFit. But utilizing both of these types of cardiovascular training, one with low heart rate and one with high heart rate, is really how we build endurance. Okay. The second type of exercise that I want to talk about is resistance. Okay. This is very important and just as important as cardiovascular exercise. Resistance exercise is putting a physical resistance or a physical load on parts or our whole body, right? So this also means contracting and stretching our muscles or groups of muscles that is going to eventually lead to muscle growth. All right, so this can be done at the gym with machines, free weights, resistance bands, or it can be done body weight as well. However, it's the best part about resistance training is that it's not just increasing our muscle mass, but it's also increasing our overall strength. And overall strength also means bone strength as well. So with resistance training, we are increasing our muscle mass and we are increasing our bone strength, which is bone mineral density. That gets in a whole cascade, but very, very important for health span. Okay, and then the third exercise, which not most people are familiar with, is mobility. And I'm going to branch these out again, but mobility is quite simply your ability to be mobile, right? Our ability to move our body the right way. And this consists of flexibility, which we all know because we do various stretchings, right? That's moving our joints through its full range of motion. Our ankle joints, our knees, our hips, our shoulders, you name it. And then the second part of mobility is stability, right? And that's just our balance. So in order to be mobile, we need to be flexible and we need to be stable. So each of these are very important for very different reasons. And that's what I want to go through next by going through the benefits of moving. Okay, so first off, it is going to significantly improve our sleep. So we're putting these together. We're putting movement and we're putting exercise together, and you can get these benefits of doing one or the other. However, doing both is where you're going to get the most benefits. So regarding improving our sleep, not only sleep quantity, but most importantly, sleep quality is improved, right? So by doing this, by exercising and by moving your body, you're regulating your body temperature. You're going to be more tired throughout the day, and also your body's going to be in a much healthier state, which is going to improve the quantity and quality of your sleep. Second is improving mental health, right? This is going to help reduce anxiety and stress, enhances cognitive function. And this happens because during movement and exercise, we release chemicals called endorphins. And some of you may know this as what's called our happy chemicals, right? This is why you feel so good, especially after a really tough workout, because we are actually releasing happy chemicals. Third, improvement in cardiovascular health. We touch on cardiovascular exercise. So this is very simply that our heart is a muscle, and therefore we can also improve the strength of our heart as well. And that's going to improve our cardiovascular health, right? That blood flow throughout the body from the heart to the vessels back to the heart is very good for us, and that is going to improve our health, our overall cardiovascular health. Then we have the regulation of our blood pressure and blood sugar. Exercise and movement tremendously outperforms insulin and outperforms any blood sugar or blood pressure medication out there today. It is hands down the best way to regulate blood pressure and blood sugar. Movement and exercise also reduces risk for chronic disease. There are many chronic diseases like diabetes, cancer, metabolic syndrome, brain deterioration, and many more, unfortunately. But the great thing is that movement and exercise is going to help significantly reduce the risk for these. Then we have improvements in muscle and bone strength that I mentioned with resistance training. We have improvements in mood, energy, mobility, posture, digestion, weight management, mental toughness, really just encapsulating all the benefits that we get from movement and exercise. However, the most important benefit from movement and exercise is the increase in health span that we get, right? And this just adds to our bucket of increasing health span and our toolkit, right? So we had nutrition that we talked about last webinar, and now we are adding movement and exercise. And I guess you have to come back for the next webinars to see what these other three questions are. So we are now going to jump into what should you do? What can you take after this webinar and start implementing into your daily life in order to reap all of these benefits? Number one, mentioned it with the nutrition webinar, but we have to be aware of all exercise myths as well. There are so many different things out there on social media, on the internet. Some examples include do this core workout for fat loss, right? Do this type of cardio for fat loss. The classic lifting weights makes you bulky. You have to sweat for a good workout. You have to be sore for a good workout. All of these different things that are out there that are just unnecessary and not needed. So with that being said, let's just focus on what's important. So I want to give you my recommendations regarding exercise and movement to really help you get an idea of where to start. Number one, for movement, I highly recommend limiting sitting time to 6 hours per day. Unfortunately, with the jobs that we get into, we are very susceptible to sitting down all day. And this is why I really emphasize the importance of a standing desk, because this could really help you with movement, right? Don't think about movement as actually moving from point A to point B, right? Standing is movement. You're going to be moving around your body. You're standing on your feet. So that is one of my recommendations for movement. For exercise, I highly recommend trying to accumulate 150 minutes per week of moderate to vigorous activity. Don't get too worried about what is moderate, what is vigorous. All we're trying to do is exercise to get our heart rate up above resting levels, and that is going to be considered moderate. And then any more that you do is going to be vigorous, right? So 150 minutes. This is the general recommendations across the board to reap any of the benefits that I mentioned previously. That's about 22 minutes per day. And that's only 1.5% of our entire week. Okay. Third, I really emphasize varying the type of exercise we do. It's very easy to do one exercise or the other, do only cardio, do only resistance. However, getting the variety of all of them throughout the week not only is so beneficial for us, but it also makes movement and exercise a lot less boring if we're switching it up. So definitely get a good variety so that you get the benefits, the endurance benefits of cardiovascular training, you get the muscle and bone benefits of resistance training, and you get the mobile from mobility. Then the very last but not least recommendation that I have to focus on is to come in with the right mindset. I'm going to be honest with everyone. Physical activity, movement, and exercise is just as much of a mental challenge as a physical challenge. You are not going to want to move your body and exercise every single day. That's just the unfortunate truth. It is going to be hard at times. However, I love the saying that you will never regret a workout, right? We mentioned the endorphins of how good you feel after exercise, after moving your body. But I don't want to come into this and say that it is going to be very straightforward and very easy. I love moving, I love exercise, but there are days where I certainly don't want to do it. But it's the benefits that we mentioned that really motivate me to get out there and continue and be very disciplined with my exercise and my movement. Okay, and then the last mindset I really want you to have is try not to overcomplicate things, right? Exercise and movement is a healthy stressor on our body. What's not a healthy stressor is adding lifestyle stress into our movement and exercise, right? Don't make a very healthy activity of exercise and movement unhealthy by making it a stressor. If you have a really busy day one day and you can't get to your exercise routine, it's okay. Try to fit it in another day. Don't let it add more stress to your day and really focus on having a right mindset coming into it. All right. So before we close for questions, I would like to leave you with one final thought. If you are following these recommendations for movement, for exercise, for varying your types of exercise, and the mindset, you are actually reducing your risk for disease and death by 22%. To paint that picture, that's the difference between a C plus and an A plus. And you should be very, very proud of yourself if you are hitting these recommendations because you are truly setting an example, not only for yourself, but for the next generation, for your kids. And it is very important and very impactful. So with that, please write down any questions that you have, any comments that you have. And if you need any extra additional resources, I have a free Facebook community that you are more than welcome to join. That would be awesome. Follow me on social media. Instagram and YouTube are my main two. And then you can check out my website. All of this is through that QR code. So it's very easy and very straightforward.
Again,
Yes,
please throw your questions in the Q&A option on your panel, please. Thank you.
I'm glad the sound got figured out.
Yes, we're all good there.
Awesome.
Yep, someone asking about the recording nutrition session. Yes, we will get that over to you ASAP, that recording. All right, we got a question here. Do you think it's better to work out in the morning or at night?
Love this. Yeah, so I would say, and if you're here for the nutrition webinar 2 weeks ago, you will notice that my answer always starts with it depends for a lot of answers. However, I will break it down. So this one, it does truly depend on morning or at night. It depends on your goals, but it also depends on what you like the most, right? In the perspective of what's better for our health, honestly, there isn't too much of a difference, especially in the research. So I would say, what is the most convenient for you? What can you fit in your daily schedule? And what works best for you? For example, some people love working out in the morning because they get their hard workout done throughout the day. They don't have to worry about it towards the end of the day, and they get the benefits there. However, some people don't love working out in the morning, so they work out at the end of their day and they actually get a better workout. So it truly does depend on what you prefer. I would say, honestly, whatever you can be most consistent with is the best answer for morning or night.
Gotcha. All right. What would you recommend for someone in their 60s just starting out?
Love, love, love this question because this I can definitely relate to because I actually helped my dad with this. My biggest recommendation for starting out, but especially around 60 years of age, would be the very simple answer of starting simple. But what I mean by starting simple is don't feel the need to jump into a 30 to 60-minute workout. Start with 10 to 15 minutes, right? And this can be so simple as going for a walk, or if you're comfortable, going for a light jog. If you want to get into some resistance, doing some body weight exercises, right? 10 to 15 minutes of push-ups, sit-ups, squats, right? The basics. I would really emphasize starting simple, starting with the basics and letting it build upon from that, right? You're gonna naturally, through these endorphins, add more time to that workout. You're going to add more push-ups. You're going to add more sit-ups, more distance if you're doing cardio. So really try to focus on making this a long-term goal so that you can actually start very, very simple. This also depends based on where you're at physically, what you can handle. So that's why I really want to emphasize start with your limits and then work your way up and really focus on the long-term adaptation rather than the short-term quick fix.
Or another one here. How do you plan your workouts?
So I highly, highly recommend planning your workouts. And the reason I say this, and I'll get into what I personally do, but the reason I say plan your workouts is because if you do have a plan going into that day, that exercise for that day, well, then you're gonna know exactly what to do, and you're gonna have less of a chance of walking out of there. Right. So what I personally do is I do two approaches to this. Number one, I plan my exercise for my entire training program, I would say. So, for example, I am training for a triathlon. So, I made a plan for the entire training program, but then I broke it down. I broke it down week by week, and then I broke it down day by day, exercise by exercise. So, it depends on what your overall goal is, but I would recommend see what your overall goal is, make a plan to get to that overall goal and then break it down for process goals of okay, what type of exercise is going to get me that to that plan, and then build a exercise specific exercise plan off of that. And then that way you have something to follow, but you have something to follow that you know is leading to the end goal.
Gotcha. What do you think of 10,000 daily steps?
I think one, it is absolutely awesome because it is movement, right? That really emphasizing the movement side of things. However, the 10,000 number is depending on the person, right? If you are someone who averages 2 to 3,000 steps per day, well, then I would say jumping from 2,000 to 10,000 is just unrealistic, and you're not going to be able to be consistent with that. So end goal, I love 10,000 steps a day. That's just because that means you are moving your body a significant amount. However, don't think that is your goal. Your goal is more than what you are doing yesterday. So I would say that's something you can totally shoot for. But again, start simple, look at the big picture, and add more steps in as you can. But also remember, when we're talking about movement, using a standing desk or just standing is part of that, but it is not steps. So don't just think movement is steps. Think steps are a part of movement.
What are your thoughts on doing total body workouts consistently versus working different parts of the body on scheduled days?
hmm Love this. So I would say this depends on a few things. Depends on your goals, and it also depends on what you like doing. So I can speak on this from a personal standpoint because I've done multiple. I've done different parts of the body where you do back buys, chest tries, push pull, legs, or I've done what I'm currently doing now are more full body routines as well. I would say the benefits of the differentiating between the body parts will be you can do a lot more physical load on each muscle group, which means you can build more muscle. Um, However, it's going to involve more bouts of that exercise because you have a lot of muscle groups. So that brings in the benefits of the full body workouts where you can get a full body workout hitting every single muscle group in one session for a short period of time. Um, However, you're just not putting the same amount of load on that one physical muscle group. So I would say in terms of just efficiency, full body is great if you're just trying to get a good workout. If you're trying to build a specific part of your body, I would recommend doing the separated muscle groups.
Got you. Another one with workouts. Can you split your workouts throughout the day?
Definitely. And I love that actually. There are actually many studies that are showing more benefits to this because you're actually moving your body more throughout the day as well. So whether that's splitting up cardio and resistance, whether that's just doing the same workout, just doing 15 minutes early in the day and 15 minutes later in the day, absolutely. The caveat to this would be if you were doing, let's say, a 30-minute low intense steady state cardiovascular training session, you wouldn't get as many benefits out of doing one single 30-minute session than you would splitting them up, just because your heart would be working harder for a longer period of time. So if it's that would be the only caveat. However, totally, totally cool, especially getting some more benefits out of it as well.
Alrighty. For weight loss, how much of my current calorie intake can I cut with working out to see results?
Mm. Love this. So this is a definitely depending question because this kind of gets into the nutrition topic as well. One of the biggest things to mention with cutting calories and bringing your workouts into it is we don't want to, if we're trying to lose weight and we want to be in a calorie deficit, we cannot be in too much of a calorie deficit, right? And too much of a calorie deficit meaning is meaning that we're not consuming enough calories for our basal metabolic rate, right? The amount of calories that we burn just to survive. If we are not consuming that many calories, then we are going to be nutrient deficient, which means we're going to lose a lot of energy, lose a lot of focus, all of these things. So I would say with your current calorie intake, if you are in a calorie intake that's at a maintenance and you are adding in exercise, what I would say is shoot for a calorie deficit no more than 500 calories per day. That's going to come out to about 3,500 per week, which is going to, on average, equal to about 1 pound of fat loss per week as well. So again, this depends on the type of exercise that you're doing, the intensity, the duration. But I would say take your maintenance calories, add in your exercise calories, and figure out a calorie deficit of around 500 per day.
How many times a week should you do weights versus some kind of cardio?
Awesome. So this definitely depends, but the general recommendation is to try to get 2 to 3 resistance training sessions in per week, and then that 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity. That can be the cardio side of things. So those are the general recommendations. And then make sure for the weights as well, it's hitting every muscle group, making sure whether you're doing full body or the separated muscle groups, just trying to hit all of them, legs, chest, back, shoulders, core, you name it.
Which is better for the body, fasted workouts or eating something small?
Love this. So in terms of results, right? If it's weight loss results, if it's health results, to be honest, there is not enough of a difference for it to matter. I would say to go by feel. If you are someone who is trying to perform at a very high level and you want to get more out of your workouts, I would recommend consuming something before because carbohydrates are going to fuel you for that workout. If you are someone that is totally okay with working out on an empty stomach, you don't have any performance issues, any energy issues, and you just feel better fasted, I would say go for it. I've done both. I've had benefits to both. So it truly does depend.
Do you recommend doing a cardio hit after weights?
Oh, I love this too. So in terms of, because this is very similar to the cardio before or after your resistance training session, I would say, again, it depends on what your goal is. So if you want to build muscle, I would prioritize doing the resistance beforehand and then doing the cardio after. If you are prioritizing endurance and want to build that side of things, I would prioritize doing cardio first and then resistance. So, and this goes overall, whatever you are trying, whatever your overall goal is, I would recommend doing that first. If your overall goal is just general health, it doesn't matter too much. I would say getting a variety of both, having some days with it before, some days with it after. And it also depends on the type of cardio. Because, for example, if you're doing hit a very high intense cardio session, your resistance session is going to be a little affected because of the energy expenditure that you're doing beforehand.
With the goal of movement, how many steps should I aim for each day?
Love that. So again, with the steps, it's going to really depend. So I would say again, the reason that I did limiting sitting time to 6 hours was because of I didn't want to set a step number for everyone, which is why I put the limiting sitting time. But general rule of thumb is the 10,000 steps is a significant amount of steps where you're really gonna have to challenge yourself to get to. You're going to have to deliberately go on a 30 to 60-minute walk if you're someone who works at a desk all day. Um, I would say, very general rule of thumb for the overall population to try to get over, let's say, 7,500 steps would be ideal. And then anything above that, you're only getting more benefits.
Does intensity matter? A 15-minute brisk walk versus a 60-minute stroll.
Totally. And I love this question again because it comes into one, what you have based on time, right? And what you're trying to do as well. So, for example, if you only have 15 minutes to go for a walk and you do that brisk walk, you're going to be elevating your heart rate higher, which means you're going to be burning more calories as well. Versus the 60-minute walk, it's going to be lower intense and your heart rate is going to be a little lower, but it's going to be overall a longer duration, right? So proportionally, I can't give you the exact numbers with the intensity and the duration of what matches up, but by doing a higher intensity for a shorter duration, you're going to be burning the same amount or a similar amount of calories than you would at a lower intensity for a longer duration. Again, I can't give you the exact numbers of what that is, but many benefits of doing the shorter durations of higher intensity and the longer duration of lower intensity.
What kind of exercise do you recommend for minimal, moderate muscle definition? Does swimming help, or will this be weight-based only?
hmm So for muscle definition, there's two things with this. Number one, from an exercise standpoint, I would say doing resistance training of any sorts, right? This can be going to the gym and hitting machines, doing free weights, just what you need for really muscle tone and muscle growth is to put the muscle through its full range of motion, a contraction and a stretching. And you want to make sure you do that with all the major muscle groups as well. So I would highly recommend really focusing on resistance training. In regards to swimming, absolutely does swimming help. Swimming, and even I'll throw biking in there too. Not many people realize that these are resistance exercise, right? Resistance just means pushing against an external resistance, an external load. Swimming, you're pulling against the water. Biking, you're pushing against the pedal, right? So yes, those are totally resistance exercise, but you mentioned it, right? Those are non-weight bearing exercises. So you'll get a muscular benefit. However, you won't get a bone benefit from those types of exercise. So make sure you get many variety as well. The second part I really want to emphasize, and this goes back to the nutrition one, is to really get muscle definition. It really does making sure that you have the right amount of nutrition, the right amount of calories, the clean and real and whole food. These go hand in hand. So if you're really looking for muscle definition, you can't unfortunately out exercise an unhealthy diet.
Are pre and post workout powders good for you to use?
Hmm. Definitely depends. I would say starting with pre-workout. So pre-workouts, there's many different formulations for both, right? You have caffeinated ones, you have ones that give you a muscle pump, you have some that help with endurance. Um, I would say if you need a pre-workout for a caffeinated reason, you could totally benefit from that. However, be careful, and this brings in supplements in general. The supplement industry is very, very wishy-washy. That's the term I'll use. Supplements do not have to be regulated like food does, which means any one of us can make a supplement with a concoction of powders and sell it on the market. So that is my hesitation with pre-workouts. If you're looking just for the caffeine side of things, I highly recommend going with natural caffeine, coffee, tea, yerba mate. Or if you are looking for more of like the muscular pump benefits and the muscular endurance benefits, those side of things, I would highly recommend going quality and paying a little bit extra for a good quality pre-workout. For post-workout, everything I said about supplements stands here as well. What you're looking for in a post-workout is a protein-rich supplement, right? So this can be a what's known as a whey protein isolate. So there's a bunch of different whey protein sources. There's an isolate, there's a concentrate. Focusing on the isolate because this is the post-workout version of a protein powder. Um, the reason that you could benefit from that is because when you go to the gym, you work out, you get your protein shake right after at the gym if you can, you're getting a protein source and a fast acting protein source in right after your workout. While if you don't, if you wait until you get home or you wait until your next meal, it could be 3 to 4 hours until you get a protein source in after your workout. So if you can't get a protein source 3 to 4 hours after your workout, I highly recommend with going with a whey protein isolate. If you can get a high protein meal in after your workout within an hour or two, then I would say you don't absolutely need it, but you still could benefit from a post-workout protein isolate.
What is a great resource to find workouts to create my workout plan?
Mm. So I personally have some resources on my website if you want to check those out. I have a bunch of different workout programs on there, exercise routines. Um, but I would say we have an unlimited amount of resources out there to find workout plans, to find structures. You can do a simple Google search, you can do a simple YouTube. You can also use ChatGPT. ChatGPT does make a very good workout and workout routines. So don't be afraid to type in exactly what you want to that as well. I know it's a new thing, but I have tested it and it does fairly well. So absolutely unlimited resources out there, whether it's me, whether it's free ones online. If you're looking for very specific ones, I'm not just saying this because I am one, but I do highly recommend hiring a coach of some sort because they are going to be more individualized, more specific to your goals. So, plenty of resources out there.
What workout is best if you are going through menopause, extremely tired, and very unmotivated?
Love this question. So, I will say I'm going to focus on the extremely tired and the very unmotivated part because in terms of specific workouts for menopause, the research is very limited. I would say really focusing on the fatigue and the motivation side of it. So what is not going to be best for you is going to be these really high intense workouts, right? Because that contains a lot of energy use and that is going to require a lot of motivation, right? So I would recommend trying to do more of low intense, steady state where you can more so create a healthy environment around it, right? You're getting on the treadmill, maybe you're doing a little incline, increasing the speed, but then you can also throw in a podcast, you can throw on Netflix, you can put something on the screen, right? Creating that environment around it to really help with the motivation side of things is super beneficial, right? You can get a lot of benefits from doing those low intense steady state exercises. And then as well, I would say resistance training in terms of like a bodybuilding type of resistance plan because it's lower intense. You're more so just focusing on the general movements. So I would say from a motivation standpoint and a low energy standpoint, keeping the type of exercise on a lower intensity side so that it's going to help with motivation so you don't have to drag yourself to this crazy workout and it's just gonna it's still you're still gonna get the benefits you're looking for.
How do you calculate your BMR?
Awesome. So very, very simply, there is a formula for it. Ignore the formula. You can just type in on Google basal metabolic rate calculators, or again, you can use ChatGPT. However, let me emphasize this with BMR calculators and any fitness nutrition related calculators online. These are estimations. They are only using your height, your body weight as a gauge to measure BMR. I mentioned in the webinar that one of the most important factors for basal metabolic rate is your muscle mass, and most people don't know their true muscle mass, and these calculators also don't account for that, right? So you have to be very, very careful when calculating your BMR. But my recommendation is if you're trying to figure out your calorie expenditure to some sort, use the general calculated BMR that they gave you, but then also use trial and error to figure out what your caloric intake versus expenditure should be. Right. So for a couple of weeks, find that number for a couple of weeks, stick to a certain amount of calories per day, and see how your weight fluctuates. If it aligns with your goal, stick to it. If it doesn't, then you can change it around, and then you'll kind of find that perfect balance.
Any current fitness influencers you're following?
Ooh, I love this question. So yes, I mean, I definitely follow a lot, but the ones that I follow the most tend to be the ones that are real, right? Not the gurus, the ones that are doing it themselves. One of my absolute favorites that I really try to emulate and work off of, his name is Nick Bear. And he actually has an awesome supplement company as well called Bear Performance Nutrition. You can check him out on YouTube and on Instagram. Awesome, awesome dude. Just a workout freak, and he's just a real person. He does the work. He doesn't fake it. He's not just all talk. He's actually doing it. So Nick Bear is one of my favorites as well. There a really really good one as well. Thomas DeLawler. He is on Instagram and YouTube as well. He is less of exercise and more nutrition. But he also has a really good mindset and approach to things. Going off of that, just influencers in general. Dr. Peter Attia is one of my go-to resources for nutrition and exercise. Just for, I mean, very, very. Don't get me wrong. He's very specific and some of the content is high level. But he is just another real person. Dr. Andrew Huberman, he is also another one. He has a podcast that I absolutely love. And the list goes on and on. But really focusing on trying to find the people out there that aren't gurus, that are actually doing it themselves, that are actually putting in the work. They're telling you what to do, but they're telling you things that they do or have done themselves as well. And that's what I truly try to do as well.
All right, looks like we have one more question here. How does intermittent fasting work if you are trying to work out?
Oh, okay. I love this because this brings in nutrition and exercise. So this is really tough, right? Especially if you're one that works out in the morning and your fasting window is in the morning as well. My biggest and simplest recommendation is to try to put your workout around your eating window, whether that's right before or right after, so that look, if you're one that you can work out on an empty stomach fasted, that is great, but make sure you are consuming something right after so that you're getting the benefits there. If you're someone that cannot work out on an empty stomach, I would say then try to work out towards the end of your eating window or within it so that you are at least fueling yourself, right? That's the most important part, fueling yourself before or after your workout, depending on it.
Awesome. That looks like it's the last question. Let's see if anybody else has anything else they'd like to ask. Give it another second.
Love those questions. These were awesome.
All right, I don't see anything else coming in right now. And of course, if you have any questions, you could always just email me or Anthony. But thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you, Anthony, for sharing all the amazing information.
Mhm.
We will be sending out a follow-up email and the recording. If you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to myself or Anthony. We look forward to seeing you at our part 3 of our series, Sleep, the Most Underrated Aspect of Health. Thank you and have a great rest of your night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.